Chapter 20. If I Die. Ari had caught sight of Carla in the distance, her long, naturally wavy auburn hair bouncing with every step. These tall Americans, they stand out in any crowd. And that self-confident stride, the look. Ari pretended not to see her, and she made as though she were walking past. Casually, she turned in his direction, stopped as though taken by surprise, and waved. "Professor Mueller!" she called. Ari looked up and saw her, as though for the first time. "Carla!" he cried as he jumped to his feet. The tall American squeezed her way between the closely packed diners to his table, where Ari gave her a welcoming hug. "I was going to call you, but I'd lost your phone number," she exclaimed. "What a lucky coincidence." "Nicole, this is Carla Bertelli. Nicole is my fiancée. I don't think you've ever met." "You've mentioned her," said Carla, "and I've been looking forward to this." Nicole smiled warmly and pointed to the chair beside her. "Please join us. Can you?" Carla glanced at her wristwatch and hesitated, playing Ari's script to the hilt. "I'm on my way to a meeting, but this is too wonderful an opportunity to pass by. I can be a few minutes late." She sat down and placed her black handbag next to Nicole's. "Something to drink?" asked Ari. "Some iced tea would be nice." Ari motioned to the waiter. "Some iced tea for the lady," he said, "with lemon." "Oui, monsieur." Ari turned to Nicole. "Carla was a student of mine the year I started teaching at the Sorbonne. That was nearly 17 years ago. Her French was unbelievably good, not a trace of that disagreeable American twang." "I already noticed," said Nicole. "Flawless Parisian." "Well, I grew up here as a teenager," responded Carla modestly. "Professor Mueller was the best teacher I ever had." "Every student who's ever taken one of his classes says the same thing," added Nicole proudly. "That's how we met. I was also his student. In one class. After your time, I guess." "About 11 years later," said Ari with an embarrassed laugh. "All this flattery is a little too much. I remember very well being extremely nervous that first year. It was such an honor to be on the faculty of France's most prestigious university." "You fooled me," laughed Carla. "I thought you'd been there forever." "Voilà, mademoiselle," said the waiter, placing the drink on the table. "That was fast," said Carla with a smile. She took a sip. "And delicious, too." "A combination that's not too easy to find here in Paris, where dining is a time-consuming art," remarked Ari. Nicole turned the conversation to Carla. "So what brings you back to Paris?" "A convention of journalists. Tonight's the last meeting." "I understand that you write for several newspapers. Any particular specialty?" "Yes, parapsychology." "Really?" Nicole's interest was now aroused. "I suppose Dr. Mueller—" "Hans Mueller," interrupted Carla. "Where does the Ari come from? I've never heard that before." "It's a nickname I had in Germany as a boy," explained Ari. "Only Nicky calls me that." "Anyway," continued Nicole, "I suppose Ari hasn't mentioned that I'm doing my residency in brain surgery, with a growing interest in your subject." "No, he didn't. Well, I'm fascinated with your specialty, too. If I can help you, send you some articles." "Oh, that would be wonderful." "You know, there's a general consensus now that there's a significant relationship between our two fields." "Yes, I'm aware of that. It's very kind of you to offer some help. Does Ari have your address?" "I don't think so," responded Carla, reaching into the pocket of her jacket. "Here, let me give you my card. I'd love to keep in touch." "You keep surprising me, Carla. When did you get into psychic phenomena?" Ari asked in surprise. "That wasn't your interest the last time I saw you." "Quite recently, actually. I'm still feeling my way. My ex-boyfriend got me started. He's probably the top parapsychologist in the world. An incredible genius." "You mean Ken Inman?" "Yes, Ken Inman. I remember meeting him at Stanford University, the one time I was out there." "You broke up?" "Well, not exactly. Nothing final. We just sort of drifted apart. He's got some top-secret research that takes his attention 24 hours a day. I think we still love each other, but, well," she winked at Nicole. "A woman doesn't want to be taken for granted." "A chronic complaint," agreed Nicole with an understanding smile. "I wasn't going to sit around and wait," continued Carla. while Ken pursued his work so passionately that he had no time for me. He just seemed to think I'd always be there whenever he wanted me. So I left him in California and moved to Washington, D.C. Did that bring him to his senses? Asked Nicole. It took 2 years, but he's flown out to see me twice in the last month. In fact, he's coming in again as soon as I get back from this trip. Carla glanced at her watch again. I'd really love to stay and talk, but I must get to that meeting. Remember, said Ari, leaning forward and lowering his voice, get that data as quickly as you can into the safest place possible. If I die or disappear, no matter what the circumstances, you know what to do. You can count on me. What I'm giving you is hot, world-class stuff, confided Ari. Believe me, it would shake a lot of governments from Moscow to Washington. If it's that important, said Carla, I can put it on the front page of every major newspaper in the world. Hopefully you'll never need to publish it, because that would mean they've done me in. Who are they? You wouldn't believe it if I told you, but now you'll have all the proof. You'd be absolutely astonished to know the alliances that are working for a new world order and what they're doing to accomplish it. So that's what all the material is about? Partly. It's amazingly complex, but I've laid it all out with documented proof, so you won't be afraid to publish it, if the time ever comes. Sounds fascinating. I'd love to see it published, but not over your dead body. If you published it now, I would be dead, but if you hold it, that could save my life. Well, this was a wonderful surprise, Professor, exclaimed Carla, pushing her chair back. Reaching down, she smoothly took Nicole's bag, then stood to leave. I really have to go. It was nice to meet you, Nicole, and to see you again, Dr. Mueller. If you ever get over to Washington, or when I'm next in Paris, we must spend some time together. We'll do it, promised Ari. Yes, added Nicole, we must keep in touch. And please, send those articles. Ari watched Carla until she'd been swallowed up in the mass of humanity crowding the streets. Then he turned to Nicole. Thanks, Nikki. I really appreciate your doing this. It went off perfectly. Carla's a smooth operator. I'm glad I could help. She is a charming woman, and I hope we can keep in touch. There was a long, embarrassing silence. At last, Ari volunteered. Well, back to square one. So you believe in God, Nikki. As I said, I don't have any problem with that. Let's be honest, Ari. You do have a problem with a God who sets the standards of human behavior. You're just not admitting it. We've been over that before, and it leads nowhere. What other crucial decisions did you come to last night under the influence of those friends? Please, you don't know anything about them, so it's not fair to make insinuations. Well, they obviously took advantage of your emotional state. Nicole stood to leave. You wanted me to explain some things, but I really don't think you're in any mood to take me seriously. Before he could reply, she was walking away. Ari waved a 100-franc note frantically at the waiter, then dropped it on the table and ran off in hot pursuit. Where are you going? He asked apprehensively when he'd caught up to her, then added, again, with some irony. She was leaving their apartment farther behind with every stride. Nicole stopped and turned to face him. I'm not sleeping with you anymore. I can't. Not until we're married. If we ever are. And that's in God's hands now. So that's it. Come on, Nikki. Where did you get these prudish ideas? These friends have sure done a number on you. She put a hand on his arm. I love you, Ari, very much. I don't want to hurt you, but I just can't violate my conscience. It always bothered me. Sleeping with me? He interrupted in astonishment. It did? Why didn't you ever say so? I was confused. Didn't want to hurt you. I told myself that my feelings of guilt were brought on by old-fashioned ideas. You know, stuff I'd learned in childhood. The usual rationalization. You never told me anything about feeling that way. Why now? I wanted to get married right from the beginning, remember? You talked me into living with you for just a short while to see whether we were compatible. Then you decided that a marriage certificate was just a meaningless piece of paper. So what's the big deal whether we're married or not? Would that change anything? Yes, it would. What? And how? Ari, it shows a commitment for life. I love you, Nikki. I'd never leave you. You know that. I've told you so many times. But you wouldn't stand in front of witnesses and say it and make it official. Nicole's lips were trembling, and in the fading light, Ari could see tears welling up in her eyes. How he longed to hold her in his arms. I would be willing, he stammered, but it never seemed that important. Every society has marriage for its own stability, laws that forbid the arrangement we've had. It isn't good for lots of reasons, and it's especially bad for any children that come along. Look at us right now. So you're afraid we're going to get arrested? Come on. There's something worse than breaking man's laws, and that's breaking the laws of God. That's why I have to leave, Ari. God knows I love you as much as ever, and I hope we can get married, but I can't push that on you. Well, I'd be willing to get married if we could agree on something else. Nicole's eyes lit up with anger. This is our child that I'm carrying, Ari. But if you don't want to be bothered with it, then I'll take care of it alone. I'm certainly not going to allow you to talk me into terminating it. You have a way with words, muttered Ari. It's so incredible that this accident could shatter the perfect relationship we've had for 6 years. Unbearable agony was etched on his face. Where are you staying tonight? He stammered, searching for words. With the same friends. I'd like to tell them what I think of them. Agony had turned to fury. They've warped your mind. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll be coming by tomorrow to get my things. I'm not sure when. She turned and walked away.